welcome back to the channel. Today I want to give you an overview of the system that we use here at Cyclops Cidery and Brewery. It is a 3-barrel, 3-vessel system from Stout. I believe it was purchased back in 2015. Give you a little overview, some of the things that still work great, some of the things a little bit of trouble, and then some ins and outs on how I run the system. So stay tuned. Okay. So here's an overview of the Stout system. Again, like I said, it's 3 barrels. If we come here and take a look, so this vessel is our hot liquor tank. This vessel is our mash tun. And this vessel is the boil kettle. So you can see it's got some tri-clamps, some elements and things like that. There's a measuring, so a sight glass on the side for measurements, which we have. Some things marked off so you know your volumes. A little hard to see because it's a permanent marker, but anywho. So just wanted to give you the rundown of how I utilize the system. Here's our 2 pumps, and then there's our heat exchanger. And I can do a more detailed video on those later if you like. But basically, we have the control panel. So I'm gonna try to get this, sorry. So the control panel consists of controls for the mash tun and the boil kettle. There's no control for the hot liquor tank and then the boil kettle. There's no control for the mash tun. It has no elements in it. But this is your main on-off here. So I'll flip that on so you can see. So as you can see, it lights up, gives us temperatures across. All of the elements are reading the exact same. So just so you can see that. If we go here, this is the on switch for the hot liquor tank. So you're going to set your temperatures. So you're going to double tap on the set point, raise or lower your temperature, and then double tap on it again to set it. So if you don't double tap on that, it will not change. It's whatever set point you had previous. So the mash tun only gives you feedback on what the temperature actually is inside the mash tun, which right now it's dropping and I'm not quite sure why. There's nothing in this, I'm not brewing today. But then the kettle is here, and that gives you the same exact input and output that you have with the hot liquor tank. So here's your on switch for that. You have a work pump and you have a water pump. So I've found that these switches tend to go bad over the life of use, but this switch has probably been turned on, I don't know, 50,000 times. So pretty good usage out of that. You have to fiddle with it a little bit, so I'm going to replace this. But anyway, you get a light for the work pump. Unfortunately, you don't get one for the water pump. That could easily be added, but it's not. So everything plugs in down at the bottom. So if we come down here and look, so we have all of our elements, our thermocouples. So these are our, I believe they're K-type thermocouples. They give us feedback, so those are what's measuring temp. You can see them back, see some back there. So main power comes in from the side, and then it's all plumbed. But these are your outlets for your elements. These are the ones for the boil kettle. These are the ones for the hot liquor tank. Here's your plugs for your pumps. So you got water pump in front and work pump in the back. So these pumps, I'm not quite sure. I've had to rebuild them a lot. They leak occasionally, and it's a good bit annoying. So it is what it is. All pumps are mechanical items, and they're going to have some failures. But anyway, so here's the heat exchanger. Like I said, I'll go into detail greater about that in another video. So the way that I start my brew day is I fill up the hot liquor tank first with my strike water. I make my salt additions there. And you're probably thinking, well, why aren't you using the hot liquor tank? Well, I use it for a little different purpose, but we'll talk about that in a second. So anyways, I fill up my strike volume, and depending upon the beer, I usually do 1.25 or 1.35 quarts per pound. And that usually gives me the correct, pretty close, in almost every beer. But I mean, that's a generic rule of thumb. So it does have a steam pipe, however, there is no fan on it. So you can see it's got a condensation tube that drips down, and I usually put a bucket just down there. You can kind of see the outline where it goes normally. But it just vents the atmosphere, so it goes out the wall and out to the air. So we try to get our volatiles off. But anyway, I add my strike water. Once my strike water is the temp, I go from the pump, I go from the very bottom outlet here, this tri-clamp, and I come over to the bottom tri-clamp on the mash tun. And then I fill the mash tun up with water, and then I grain in as it's filling. So at an appropriate level, I grain in. Now I'm tall enough, I'm 6'4", and I can just stand on the side and grain in. Some people, the previous brewer here was shorter than me. She used a step ladder. That may be something that you need, so depending upon your height. So I don't need it, but it is handy to have. So anyways, the reason why I don't fill up the hot liquor tank for my strike water is because there is a better usage for it, in my opinion. One of the previous brewers showed me this trick, and I've been using it since. So I fill this up after the hot liquor tank, or after the boil kettle. Sorry, I'm getting confused. So after the boil kettle, I fill up the hot liquor tank all the way. And I use, sorry about the focus, two purposes. One is for sparge water, and the second is for cleaning everything. So this gives me a great volume of water. So the water here is supplied, we just have hose bibs on the wall. So this is on an instant hot water heater, and this is just cold water. So when I fill up the hot liquor tank, I'm going to use sparge water and cleaning water later. So, and I heat that up to 190 degrees because that's usually what I need to be able to sparge and get this thing up to 170 mash out. So I do a fly sparge normally. So to give you an idea, so it has a perforated dome false bottom, and you can see it has a handle on it. That is to use, you can use whatever you like, and I don't know if this tool came with it, but it is, sorry about the noise. It's a hook, stainless steel hook, and that's how I get it out of there. So after I'm done, I transfer the sweet mash, or the sweet work, into the boil kettle, and I usually transfer it through the whirlpool arm because that allows me to see if it is in fact filling correctly. So here's my 3 elements. This particular one has 3 elements. I didn't mention this is 3-phase. So there's 3 elements. We have I'm gonna try to get in there, a spray ball. I move that spray ball around to different vessels to clean things up. We have one that I know of. But you can see that's the very bottom drain, and then that's the one that's a little above it. So we'll talk about that in a second. So transfer from here to here using one of the pumps, and then I set the other pump up to transfer sparge water from here to here. Before I do that, during the mash, I usually recirculate for quite a while. I'll do about a 30-minute boil off, and there is this fitting here in the top. I know this is noisy, I'm really sorry. But it has a tri-clamp fitting on the inside as well. There's one on this side. If you prefer from this side, I just like to work in the center. And then I use, let me get past our hose mess. So when I'm doing the boil off, I attach this tube to that fitting that's inside the mash tun, and that's what I use for my boil off. Oops, about died. When I do my sparge, I connect this perforated pipe. So this is your sparge pipe. So it's perforated, it has 3 sets of perforated lines. You want to make sure that your boil off is good and clean before you put this on because it stops up like crazy. So I just have a flat cap on one end and then connect to the other end. So that's what I use for my sparge. So once I'm finished and I've transferred and everything is finished here, I ramp my up to a boil while it's transferring because it takes quite a while. With 107 gallons or so, it takes quite a while to heat up. So you want to get that going as early as you can. You don't want to dry fire your elements, which I'm sure you guys have heard about. That means when they're not touching liquid, but you don't want to dry fire them. So anywho, you're going to, once the liquid is up above and it's touching the thermometer, then you'll turn your heat on for your boil kettle. So at that point, I grain out of here. So I use a couple trash cans and a plastic shovel, and I just shovel it out. So there's a manway on there, and you're meant to open the manway and shovel that out, but if you see, this manway is fairly low to the ground. So getting something under it to try to get, 225 pounds, 250 pounds of grain out of there could be a problem. So like I said, I'm tall, so I don't open the manway. I leave it in there. So I grain out as much as I can with the shovel. I get as much of that out of there with the shovel as I can. And it's usually pretty darn close. And then I use that hook tool to pick this up, but I don't pull it out. I pick it up and hold it up sideways. Well, I connect just one of those hoses here and run that over to the drain. And then I use my garden hose and I spray it out. Spray all of that out of there. I wash it down really good. I wash down that false bottom. I stand the false bottom up inside. I spray it down and scrub it. I use a scrub brush and just make sure I hit that really good. And then it's usually very, very clean inside of here when I'm finished. And it doesn't take much. You would think, wow, that's a big waste of water, but it really isn't. So once that's finished and I'm finished boiling, or I'm pretty close to boiling, I'll hook up a pump to run a whirlpool on it. That sanitizes the pump right before the end of the boil. And then I'll run a whirlpool on it for about 45 minutes. So you may think that's a pretty long time, and it is, but it takes that length of time. We make a fair bit of IPAs here to get that hop cone built up down there. So, because you want your hop cone to be built up over the center and not here. So that bottom is convex, so it's shaped like that. So you don't want hop matter to make it into this hole. It does. There's nothing you can do about it really, but you try your best. And then I'll come out of here, hook up my heat exchanger, which I sanitize that separately, but I'll hook that up and then run into one of our 5 fermenters that we have here. So these are 3-barrel fermenters. They're non-jacketed. We only have atmospheric temperature control here, so we have to be careful with our yeast selections. Once that's done, I'll run a caustic cycle. I'll clean all of that out. I'll do pretty much everything right there, but using the water from the hot liquor tank. So I'll move my hot liquor over, add my caustic, run a CIP loop on it. So if you're not familiar with CIP, that spray ball, it's just clean in place. So we're not taking it apart to clean it. So run a caustic loop on it, then I run a hot water rinse after that. That's usually pretty good. There's no point in running a sanitary rinse on it. So really that's about it. But I'll keep that water at about 170 degrees because the caustic doesn't like to go over 180. But that's pretty much it for the brew system. And that's how I run it. That's how it works. So at the end of the day, everything's left nice and clean because you've used all the hot water out of here. That's super clean. This is super clean, and this is super clean, and it's ready to go for your next brew day.